Hello YouTube, Stillborn86 here with a video about the Glock Pierce grip extension and how concealable that extension is and how that can and should, in my mind, affect concealability, how easily it is to conceal, how difficult it is. What we have here is we have a subcompact Glock and a compact Glock. Yes, this is the 9mm 26 and this is the 40 cal 23, but the 26 is the same dimensions as the 27, which is 40 cal. The 23 is the same dimension set as the 27, which is 40 cal, and then or the 19, which is 9mm. So both of these can be interchangeable between 9mm and 40 cal, and size-wise. So it fits my experiment here today. Also, I have the 40 cal 13 capacity flat floor plate, stock Glock floor plate. I have the 9mm 26 flat stock Glock floor plate, and the Pierce extension that adds 0 rounds. So this is the smallest pinky extension except for the GAP floor plate, which doesn't actually extend down, it extends forward. You know, it gives you something to kind of pinch here with your pinky. It doesn't give you something to torque on your pinky here, but that's totally different. Okay? This adds 0 rounds. All it is just a pinky extension. It's just something to rest your pinky on. Now, a lot of people argue that this is easier to conceal than the compact Glock simply because the back here is cut out. Okay? Now, this experiment here is to show you that printing happens with the front of the handguard, this and the other finger grooves, as opposed to the back. And I'll show you that later here in a second. Okay? What we're going to use to show this point is the Galco Triton. Okay, this is for the Glock 23, but the 26 will fit just fine since it's a Glock. This has a slight cant to it. I want to say it's 30 degrees, but I can't find it online anymore. I believe 30 degrees is right. It doesn't really matter what degrees it's set to, since we're going to use the same holster for both guns. Okay? The cant is the important part, where a normal 0 degree cant, straight up and down holster, does the same thing. It's more exaggerated on the tilted cant, and I'll show you that here in a second. Also, what we're going to use is a Craftsman square. Okay? The point of this is that it's a 90-degree angle. The reason I chose a 90-degree angle is because if you're using proper clothing, and I mean proper clothing by regular fitting clothing, pants that fit, you know, normal conceal carry stuff, loose fitting clothes or regular fitting clothes. And if you're wearing a super tight muscle shirt, this right here is not going to be straight up and down with gravity. Your shirt's not going to drop down with gravity. It's going to form to your body. And if that's the case, you're probably not worried about concealment anyway. But most of us will wear a loose fitting shirt or a normal fitting shirt, moderate fitting shirt, and it will drop down with gravity. Sure, there'll be some fluctuation in the material, but gravity tends to pull straight down. If you're Lady Gaga, on the other hand, things are going to start looping around and poofing out and things like that. This doesn't apply to you either, and I hope Lady Gaga doesn't carry, because then the world is truly doomed. And your belt line should be pretty parallel to the ground. Okay, sure, there'll be a little droop because your gun's a little heavier, but your pants and your shirt should come pretty close to a 90-degree angle, more or less. Okay, and I've made sure off camera before I did this that this was a 90-degree angle. I used a Stanley tape measure to do the 3-4-5 rule. That you can look that up yourself. You have Google. But this is a perfect square, or close enough to it for my purpose today. I'm sure there's a tolerance issue there somewhere. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with the Glock 23. Okay, let's move the 26 out of the way. Glock 23 magazine is empty. The Glock itself is empty. Well, I can't do this one-handed. As you can see, it's empty, nothing in the chamber. The 26 also nothing in the magazine. This one's a little bit easier here. Nothing in there, nothing in the chamber. Both guns are clear, discharged. Okay, so Glock 23 compact with a flush-fitting magazine. Glock 26 subcompact with the Pierce grip extension. Let's do a hand-over-hand comparison here. When they sit flush, as you can see, the 26 fits right to the bottom of, and this is flush here, this is level. It sits flush just a little higher than the bottom of the grip here, but the magazine on the 23 comes up just a little bit more. Okay, my big point here is it's set back from the front of the grip here. The front of the grip is what prints, not the back. That's what everybody says. Okay, or that's what I say. Everybody says that because the back's recessed, this is the part that prints, so this is the harder one to conceal. I'm saying that they're equally difficult to conceal with this extension. Okay, now let's test that. Set the 26 aside. Let's get the Galco Triton. Again, I believe that's a 30-degree cant. I can't be 100% sure, but it doesn't really matter what degree it's at. Just the fact that it's canted. Let us put everything together here, and we'll set it inside the square. I'm going to hold the square at the bottom here so that it doesn't rock around and give us a false measurement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the square to the point that it meets the grip right there. As you can see, sorry about the lighting. The lighting's kind of terrible here in my basement. But anyway, the front of the grip, like I said, is the first thing that's going to meet the square when it's flush, and that comes down to, if I can focus here, about 2.5. Okay, you can see that hash mark right there. You've got a half, 1, 1/2, 2, 2.5 right there at the top of the holster. There you go. There you go. And that is where it meets the square, 2.5. Okay, for the compact flush mag. Let's take this off. Take that out. And put in the 26 subcompact with the Pierce plus 0 extension. And then repeat. Anyway, that right there, for all you people that are science nerds, that should be our control. 2.5 is our mark for normal. Okay? Now, with the Pierce plus 2 extension, again holding it down flush with the bottom of the belt clip, let's meet the top here, right there. Let's come down to see what we got, and lo and behold, 2.5. 2.5. Well, let's move that there. Different angle gives me no. 2.5, right there. More or less exactly like the 23. 2.5. Okay. Now, this is aluminum. I didn't change your hash marks. I didn't re-engrave it here really quickly. 2.5. So, there's a 0% difference between the length from your belt clip to the farthest point back on your gun. It doesn't matter if it's the front, the top, the back, the bottom, whatever. The farthest point from your belt clip to the farthest point in your gun is 2.5 inches. Okay? So there's a 0% change between the compact and the subcompact. Now, let's make things a little bit interesting. Let's take the subcompact and let's put in the flush fitting, I missed there, flush fitting Glock factory mag. Okay, now let's try this again. We're going to make sure it's flush at the bottom. We're going to meet at the top. There we go. Again, the front portion of the trigger guard, of the grip, is what meets first. If we come down, we look at 1.75. There's a half, 1 half, 1.75. 2 is way back here. This 1.75 is where we meet there. You're talking about 3/4 of an inch difference. 3/4 of an inch between this distance and this distance. Although this grip extension really only adds, well, I guess that's about an inch, a little less than an inch. It's 3/4 of an inch in concealment. And the reason why I picked the farthest point back, okay, is because when you're carrying your gun, let's use this for example, because it's the most exaggerated and easiest to see. When you're carrying your gun, your body is going to contour your shirt around in a round shape, okay? And this is going to be in one end of the round shape, and your shirt's going to drape over your gun like this. It will meet the two farthest points away from each other, okay? Which is this point and this point. It's not going to, it will, depending on how tight your shirt is, but it will it will print mainly from the two farthest points, which means these two. Now, taking our measurements, there's a 3/4 of an inch difference between the flat floor plate and the pierce grip extension, which, if I do my math right, is 30% more difficult to carry the pierce grip extension, which, since the measurement was 2.5 for this and 2.5 for that, that's also 30% more difficult to carry than the flat subcompact floor plate, which means, again, this size gun is just as easy to carry as this size gun with that extension. And again, when you go from a +0 to a +1, I don't think there's a size difference, but I know there's a size difference between the +1 and the +2 that gets even bigger, and so on and so forth. So this grip extension does print. It is harder to conceal mathematically than that, and from common than that. It's just as difficult as that. And from common everyday carry, I carry this because I like the full grip, I like the way it fits in my hand, and it's just as difficult to carry and conceal as this, from my experience. Your mileage may vary. It may be easier for you somehow. Placebo effect maybe. I don't know. If you can give me solid proof that this right here doesn't cause any more problems, then fine. That's your prerogative. But my point here is, since this is canted and this is straight up and down, this high point right here is more or less in the center of the gun. With the 23, the high point, also straight up and down, more or less in the center of the gun. The two extremes are what's going to print. Okay, and of course the tighter the shirt, the more printing you're going to get, and it's going to start falling in, and then you'll hit the top point of the grip, or you'll hit the beaver tail on the gun, whatever. But if you're wearing a proper concealed carry shirt, if you've got your wardrobe set up, you should be good. Okay, if you guys have any problems with this video, if you see any errors, if you see any things that could be done better other than the lighting, I'm in my basement, this is terrible. But please comment. I'd be more than happy to discuss it and try to fix it. Thank you very much. Have a good one.